What if you could see the exact bets that sharp bettors and syndicates are actually taking? And no, I'm not talking about public money splits, because we all know true sharps get limited quickly on the books those splits track. I'm talking about seeing where real professional bettors are actually putting significant money down. Let me introduce you to the sharp money tool. This is a tool that tracks where professional action is being placed and highlights which sportsbooks are offering you a price that's equal to or better than the price the sharp was looking to get down. Now, before we jump into examples, we first need to understand the strategy behind this. The sharp money tool that I'm going to walk you through in this video is built off of a strategy called cross-market EV betting. Now, what is cross-market EV betting? Now, you may already know the strategy of arbitrage betting, a strategy countless sports bettors are using to make a risk-free profit. Cross-market EV betting, in short, is only taking the positive expected value side of an arbitrage bet. Let me explain. Now, here we are over on OddsJam to take a look at some arbitrage bets. Again, the premise with arbitrage is pretty simple. You bet the opposite side of the same prop on different sportsbooks with different odds, and you can guarantee yourself risk-free profit. So here's an example in Colorado versus BYU, college basketball in the player made threes market. We could take Richie Saunders over 2.5 made threes at plus 104 on FanDuel, and we could take the under at plus 100 odds on Sportsino. Now, if we put $98 down on FanDuel and $100 down on Sportsino, we're either gonna win $1.92 or $2 no matter the outcome. So Sounders could go over or under, and it does not matter to us. We will cash and make a profit either way because one of those two bets is guaranteed to hit. Now, the premise with cross-market EV betting is figuring out which of these two bets in this arbitrage opportunity are the profitable bet or the bet with the better expected value. So to figure this out, we can click into this and we can take a look at the odds across multiple books for both of these props. Now we see Sounders to go over 2.5 made threes is priced at 102 on FanDuel here. Pretty in line. We have Rebet, we have Prop Builder at plus 103, average odds at minus 103. Not a huge difference between any of those books. And the best opportunities are when you can have Pinnacle to rule this. However, with this specific arb right now, Pinnacle does not have a line on this, but we can still see market consensus is right around plus 102 to minus 103 odds. However, on the flip side, we can see his under 2.5 made threes. Rebet has them at minus 134, Props Builder minus 133, Sportsino sits here at plus 100, and FanDuel, for example, is not offering the under, but at plus 102, we can see Prop Builder plus 103, Rebet plus 103, their under is minus 133, FanDuel would be minus 132, minus 133 odds. So the consensus line there is telling us that the under really should be valued at about minus 133 odds, yet Sportsino is leaving it at plus 100. So that is a ton of expected value on this play, getting a bet at plus 100 odds when you really should be paying minus 133 juice for that same exact bet. So if we were taking this as a cross-market EV play, we would take the Sportsino side. We know FanDuel is a sharper book than Sportsino is, so there's point number one when trying to find cross-market. You want to take the play on the less sharp book because FanDuel is setting the line better than Sportsino is, and then when we compare multiple books, we see that same thing, that FanDuel has a sharper line on this play than Sportsino, so we can take advantage of the value that Sportsino is giving us. Now you can find these cross-market EV bets by yourself right here on the OddsJam arbitrage tool, but to make it even easier, we can head over to the Sharp Money tool. Now here we are on the OddsJam Sharp Money tool, and if you guys want to get access to the Sharp Money tool, join OddsJam today. Use promo code TAKES for a free week trial and 35% off your first month, so you can copy the exact strategy using the Sharp Money tool that I'm about to walk you through. So when you're in the Sharp Money tool, here is what you're looking at. We can see all these different plays on the left, and the numbers in green here is how much liquidity is available on the betting exchanges NoVig and ProphetX for these specific bets. Now we won't dive too in depth into this, but the reason NoVig and ProphetX are so important here is because they are very sharp betting exchanges. And they're sharp because they're peer-to-peer betting exchanges, not user versus house sportsbooks. We have to remember that professional bettors bettors oftentimes can't put down more than $100 on a DraftKings or a FanDuel because they're either banned or limited on those platforms for having a proven track record long-term against the house. And of course, sportsbooks don't want you to take their money, so their solution against sharp professional bettors is to limit or ban them. The betting exchanges like NoVig and ProphetX operate off of a completely different business model. They make their money off of transactions, not a house fee. So NoVig and ProphetX don't actually care if you're profitable or not. What they want is volume. And because there's no limits, what we see is sharps head to the exchanges when they have a play they absolutely love and a bet that they want to bet more than what the limits on other sportsbooks would allow them to bet. So what we see here on the screen in this German soccer league prop is that the total goal market is set at 2.5. You could bet over or under, but we're seeing sharps go to NoVig and ProphetX and bet $6,164 total dollars on this under. Now that $6,164 amount is the amount of liquidity that is available between NoVig and ProphetX right now that other bettors could match on the opposite side of that prop. So if we take a look over on the right-hand side here, we can see that at plus 127 odds, somebody, a sharp bettor or syndicate, went on to NoVig and placed $6,200 worth on this prop. And the reason I'm saying they placed it on the under here is because we can see that there is 6.2K worth of liquidity on the over that needs to be matched in order for this sharps bet on the under to be fulfilled. Now we can see they placed it at plus 127 odds because the liquidity waiting to be matched is at minus 127, the complete opposite. And the reason we will talk about liquidity so much on these exchanges is because you have to get liquidity matched in order to get a bet down on the exchanges. A sharp can go put down this 6.2K bet, but if the liquidity is not matched on the opposite side, their bet will not go through and their money will be refunded to them. So in order for this sharp to actually get the bet placed of under 2.5 goals, somebody or a group of people need to match their money on the opposite side of that play. So in this example here, we see 6.2K worth of liquidity waiting to be matched, but that also tells us that a sharp put 6.2K down on this under. And the reason this tool is so powerful is because the sharp money tool will flag large abnormal amounts of liquidity on these markets. So when we see somebody trying to bet $6.2 thousand on an under in a soccer market, that's not your average sports bettor. That's not your friend placing a bet on the weekend. This is a professional bettor who has an advanced model or some sort of inside information or knows the team extremely well that is very confident that this game is going to end with less than 3 goals. Now, as you can see, there will be tons of plays that pop up on the sharp money tool every single day. And not only is the sharp money tool going to tell you how much liquidity is on these props, but it's going to tell you the most profitable books to bet these on. Just like we went through the arbitrage tool, every single one of these plays is an arbitrage opportunity. However, the sharp money tool is going to give us the side of the arbitrage bet with the positive expected value. So think every time you take a play from the sharp money tool, you have 2 factors. One, you know it's the positive side of an arbitrage bet, hence why it's a crossed market EV bet, but you also know that there is big money going into that bet, likely from a sharp sports bettor or a syndicate setting markets. Now what I want to do is jump over to a couple of bets that I've taken in the past couple weeks to show you exactly what I look for every time I make a bet using the sharp money tool. Now here I have some screenshots of some of my favorite sharp money bets that I've taken over the past couple weeks, and I have a couple rules that I typically like to follow. First and foremost, I want to make sure there's over $1,000 worth of liquidity on this play that is available to be matched on NoVig and ProphetX. That means that a sharp is trying to get more than $1,000 matched to get their bets down, and that's total liquidity that I'm looking for. So there's be some plays with $300 worth of liquidity. Those are still profitable sides of an arbitrage bet. However, I like to have the extra confidence of knowing that a sharp went really heavy on this play. So here's our first example. Khalil Ware of the Miami Heat to go over 22.5 points and rebounds. First things first, when I was scrolling on the sharp money tool, I saw $4,000 worth of liquidity. That's a lot of liquidity on a singular NBA player prop. And we can even see here that 3.4K of that was likely from one individual. The $60 there, that could be somebody else. 3.4K, that's one person in all likelihood putting that bet down because they are so confident on this line. What I like to do next is check it against other sharp books. So we know that FanDuel is a pretty sharp NBA player prop book. We can see here FanDuel's odds minus 174, very juicy. However, we can also see that Hard Rock is at minus 140, Bovada minus 145. That gives me the confidence that there are other recreational books that have not caught up to a sharper sports book in FanDuel, where again, FanDuel, very sharp with NBA player props. That gives me a good indication that this is going to be a good bet, because now I know there's a sharp on this. It's the positive expected value side of a cross market EV or an arbitrage bet. And I can get a much better price on Bovada or Hard Rock than I can on FanDuel. So sharper sportsbooks are already reacting to the market here. That gives me the confidence to make this pick. Now, ideally, you always want to take this on one of the recommended books, but a lot of times you may not have access to that sportsbook that has the optimal price for this play. So this is a good system of checks and balances that I like to use to still justify taking a play even if I'm not getting the ideal sportsbook to take this on. Let's go through some more examples. Let's move over to Donovan Clingan, under 12.5 rebounds. We can see here, 2.1K worth of liquidity on this prop, while Pinnacle has a $250 limit. That's another thing I love seeing, especially with my player props, seeing that Pinnacle wouldn't let somebody bet more than $250 on this, yet sharps and syndicates have piled up 2.1K. $2,100 on this prop. That's a whole lot more than $250 that Pinnacle would be comfortable with you placing on this. So the next step I go to, one, I know there's sharps on this. I know it's the better side or the higher expected value side of an arbitrage bet. I can see here Pinnacle, sharpest sportsbook in the world, has this at minus 173 odds when I could get in on DraftKings, Bovada at minus 132, minus 130. And we even see Bet105, another book that mirrors Pinnacle, follows Pinnacle a lot, very sharp at minus 173. So I know I'm getting a phenomenal price here on DraftKings, Bovada, which I can get down. That gives me the confidence to make this a play. We see Pinnacle has a low limit, sharps are piling more than $1,000 and a significant amount more than the Pinnacle limit, and I'm getting a much better price than one of the sharpest sports books in the world. Let's continue on with Michael Porter Jr. under 3.5 assists. Same premise here. I absolutely love this play. 5.3K worth of liquidity on this, $250 limit from Pinnacle. And then we see here, this is the golden metric that I like. This is probably my favorite play that I will talk about on this video today. Pinnacle, minus 163. FanDuel, minus 174. DraftKings sitting down at minus 149. So we see two of the sharpest books, one of the sharpest player prop books in the world, in the minus 160s and minus 170s, and you could grab it at minus 149 over on DraftKings. Now, you're only taking it on DraftKings if you do not have the recommended book, which again, a lot of times you may not have the recommended book. So it doesn't mean that you can't take a play still. This is still a good pick in my opinion because Pinnacle has a $250 limit. We're seeing $5,000 from sharps on this play. And we can still get a better price on DraftKings, even though it's not the optimal odds of this play. Still a much better price than what you would get on FanDuel, a much sharper player prop book, and on Pinnacle, the sharpest book in the world. So that would make Michael Porter Jr. under 3.5 assists a golden play for me to take, and I would take this every single time I see a trend like this pop up on the Sharp Money tool. Now, let's look at a game line. We could take the Atlanta Hawks here. Hawks, Hornets. The Atlanta Hawks were piling up $46,000 on their money line as an underdog against the Charlotte Hornets. We can see right here, optimal odds were plus 171, best price on the market there. Pinnacle had a $3,000 limit on this. What I like to do in this instance is you could sprinkle half a unit or a quarter of a unit on the underdog to win the game outright. What I like doing more is playing it a little bit safer and jumping on the spread of the underdog. So I believe Atlanta was plus 6.5 or plus 7 in this game. They ended up losing by 6. So by taking the spread, I got a good cash. If I took the money line there, I would have lost. Not that it would have been a bad bet because it still did have good value taking the money line. You're not going to hit every single underdog money line that you take, but I always like taking the side of the spread for a full unit and maybe sprinkling in a quarter of a unit on the money line when I see big liquidity on underdogs, especially in the NBA. It has worked out phenomenally so far this season. I will continue doing that all the way through the end of the season, and I am excited to do it in the MLB season as well. So why did I like this play taking the Hawks again? We see $3,000 limit on Pinnacle, which is pretty low for a game line. So Pinnacle was not very confident that the Hawks would be a profitable bet for them, Pinnacle. They were worried that bettors would pile up on the Atlanta Hawks, the Hawks would pull off an upset, and that would hurt Pinnacle's pockets. But we saw sharps pile up almost $50,000 on this, so I always like when I see a ton of money on an underdog to jump on their spread, because I am assuming the sharps are going to be right, and this game will at least, at a minimum, be a competitive game, which is exactly what happened for the Atlanta Hawks for me to cash in on that spread. Let's go through our last couple plays here. Chet Holmgren under 1.5 made threes. Once again, we're seeing $250 is the max bet Pinnacle would allow you to get on this play, but sharps were piling up 5.8K worth of liquidity. And then when we take a look at sharper books, we see Pinnacle minus 171, FanDuel minus 178, and you could grab this one on DraftKings, minus 144. If you don't have access to DraftKings, you may have access to Bovada. You could get it at minus 145. You don't have either of those, you could go to MGM, minus 150. A lot of these recreational books are lagging behind the price set by sharper books. So we have a Pinnacle limit, we have sharps on this play, and we're getting a significantly better price than what you would get on the sharpest books. That is a golden play right there, just like the Michael Porter Jr. one. And my last play that we'll go over today, kind of a fun one. We saw LeBron James have sharps laying down a pretty substantial amount of liquidity for some big plus money cashes on his rebounds. LeBron over 13.5 rebounds at plus 4,000 odds. Somebody put $2,464 on that. And then we're also seeing almost just shy of $1,400 on LeBron James over 13.5 assists here. So this is telling me somebody thinks LeBron is going to have 14 rebounds and 14 assists in this game. And we also saw just under $1,000 on him to get 11.5 rebounds. His rebound prop was at 6.5. There were also about $600 on LeBron to record a triple-double this night. I took over 6.5 rebounds. LeBron ended with a triple-double. Sharps knew he would have the opportunity to get a triple-double, and they were trying to get a major cash on 14 rebounds, 14 assists. We don't need to always tail the huge plus money play, but when we see a sharp take a line that was at 6.5 and want to bet it at 13.5, that is incredible value right there. If somebody is willing to put $2,464 down on LeBron to go over 13.5 rebounds, I am willing to make a bet that he's going to get over 6.5. This sharp doesn't even need to be 100% right. But if LeBron comes close to 13.5 rebounds, we are cashing his 6.5 rebound prop very easily. So these are also plays that you will see on the sharp money tool, is sharps altering the lines to get a higher plus money play or a bigger underdog. And you can take a safer line, just like we did with the Hawks spread. I did the same premise with LeBron James rebounds. Now that's a rundown of how the OddsJam Sharp Money tool works and some strategies you can utilize as you get going with the Sharp Money tool. When you look at it from a big picture, the Sharp Money tool isn't about blindly copying picks. It's about visibility. It shows you where real professional bettors are entering the market, and that's something most sports bettors never see. When you utilize the Sharp Money tool or the cross-market EV betting approach, you're not guessing, you're exploiting market inefficiencies while knowing that you're on a bet that some of the sharpest bettors in the world are also on. In my opinion, the Sharp Money tool is the best betting resource available today. And that's because it gives you insight into part of the market that actually moves lines. And if you want to check it out, head over to OddsJam, get the Sharp Money tool today, use promo code TAKES, and you'll get a 7-day free trial as well as 35% off your first month. So get on the Sharp Money tool, test it out, track your picks, and let the math play out.